All right, let's get right into it. We're talking about a full-blown crisis at one of the biggest football clubs on the planet. I mean, it's pretty wild. Based on what we're seeing from the fan channel Anfield agenda, a huge chunk of the Liverpool fan base is in open revolt. And they're not just unhappy. They're demanding their manager, Arne Slot, be fired right now.
So you gotta ask, right? How on earth did it get to this point? Why are so many fans of a club this massive calling for the manager's head? Well, that's what we're gonna unpack. We're gonna break down the key arguments the fans are making, one by one.
So where does all this frustration start? Well, it begins with this really deep feeling that the club has just lost its way on the pitch. And it's not even just about the results, you know? It's something bigger. It's about a complete and total identity crisis.
And listen, this isn't just some random opinion from a few angry fans online. No way. The fan channel points to quotes like this one from journalist James Pearce, and it just hits the nail on the head. He's quoted as saying, "The team's play is too narrow, too static, too pedestrian." His final verdict? It's a tough watch. Ouch.
And this really shows you the massive disconnect, right? On one side, you've got the manager, Arne Slot, saying things like, "My philosophy of football hasn't changed." But then you look at what the fans are seeing, the reality on the ground, and it's a completely different story. They're describing a team with, and these are their words, no intensity, no passion, no desire. They're calling them dreadful, slow, lethargic. That is a huge gap between what the manager says and what the fans see.
Okay, so this identity crisis, it's not just some vague feeling, right? It's actually rooted in really specific problems that fans are seeing on the pitch game after game after game. So when you look at the results, you can see why they're so frustrated. Anfield agenda points to this just soul-crushing pattern. It's not even about losing big games. It's how they're not winning. They're dropping points against teams they should be beating, throwing away leads. Even when they do win, it's apparently these narrow, unconvincing victories that don't feel good. You can see how that would just deflate a fan base. And a huge part of the problem, according to a club legend, Jamie Carragher, is the defending. In his analysis, which the fan channel highlights, he does not hold back. He calls it lazy defending and says he's absolutely sick of seeing it. When a legend like Carragher is saying that, you know it's bad. So what does he mean by that? Well, he breaks it down into something he calls armchair defending, and it's a really basic, fundamental mistake. Picture this. The ball is out on one side of the pitch. The center backs, they should be shifting over to cover the space, but they're not. They're just staying put, leaving this massive gaping hole for attackers to just run straight into. It's basically handing the other team an easy chance on a silver platter.
So that leads to the big question, right? Is this a bad tactical instruction coming from the manager, or are the players just being lazy out there? But here's the thing. According to the fan channel's analysis, in the end, it doesn't even matter. Either way, the buck stops with the manager. He's the one who's supposed to fix it, and it keeps happening over and over again.
And the problems aren't just on the pitch either, not by a long shot. A lot of this discontent is also coming from reports of some serious turmoil happening behind the scenes.
And get this. This is a pretty bombshell claim cited in the fan analysis. They're talking about a civil war brewing between the manager, Arne Slot, and the club's sporting director, Richard Hughes. Now, if you don't know, the sporting director is the one who's supposed to be steering the ship long-term, with transfers and the club's overall identity. So if those two are at war, it suggests the problems are deep. We're talking about a fundamental disagreement right at the very top of the club. And here's a perfect example of this clash. The analysis talks about this impressive young player, Rio Namuha. Apparently, Richard Hughes and the recruitment team wanted to give him a bigger role in the squad. But the story goes that Arne Slot just overruled them. He wanted to loan the kid out and sign someone from another club instead. For the fans, that looks like the manager is literally blocking the path for their own homegrown talent.
And this infighting seems to be spilling over into the transfer market too. The fans are pointing to a couple of really frustrating examples. First, there was this supposed gentleman's agreement for a defender, Mark Guehi, that just fell apart. And now, his price has skyrocketed, and other big clubs are sniffing around. Then there's the whole Federico Chiesa situation. The manager apparently doesn't want to play him, so the fans are saying, well, just sell him then and use the money. It all just paints this picture of total mismanagement.
So let's recap. You've got an identity crisis on the pitch, you've got poor results, and you've got reports of a civil war off the pitch. When you add all that up, you get to the final verdict from the fans as laid out by the Anfield Agenda channel. And trust me, they are not mincing words. This quote from the channel really captures the raw emotion of it all. At this point, it's not just about tactics anymore. It's personal. The sentiment is just, I'm fed up of his failures, I'm fed up of his excuses, and I'm fed up of the heartache suffered by so many Liverpool fans.
That's the voice of a fan base that has well and truly had enough.
And then there's this number, 134. What's so special about that? Well, according to the fan analysis, under Arne Slot, the club has lost more games in a single calendar year than under any other manager in its entire 134-year history. Think about that for a second. That is a truly damning statistic.
And it seems like the fan polls back all this up. I mean, we're talking survey after survey, poll after poll, and the results are always the same. A massive majority, we're talking consistently in the high 80s, think the manager should be fired. So this isn't just a few loud voices. It's being presented as the overwhelming view of the fans.
So after you lay out all the evidence, the identity crisis, the bad performances, the lazy defending, the infighting, that historic number of losses, the conclusion from this fan perspective is stark. It's simple and it's direct. He has to go.
And all of this leaves us with a really fascinating question that's bigger than just one club. You know, in today's world of social media, fan channels, and just instant feedback, when the fan pressure gets this intense, when it really reaches a boiling point, what's a club supposed to do? It's a real dilemma, and it's one that boards all across modern football are having to face more and more.